Voices of the Village is brought to you by the Greg Olson Local History Room, a treasure chest of Ridgefield Park history.
What is your name, occupation, or prior occupation?
My name is Bob Sienicki. I'm a creative director and I'm a writer by trade.
How long have you resided in Ridgefield Park?
About 50 years.
Did you attend any of the local schools, and what is your fondest memory?
No, I did not attend the local schools, but I was on the Board of Education, so I'm familiar with the schools.
What is your favorite thing about living in the village?
My favorite thing about living in the village is the sense of community that I felt very, very strongly when I moved here and still feel it today.
Why did you move to the Village of Ridgefield Park?
We moved to the Village of Ridgefield Park for a couple of reasons. One was the proximity to New York. It was an easy commute. I always worked in New York City, and it offered a combination of a close-knit community where you could raise your children and also work in the city comfortably. We also moved here because my wife's family had lived here. My wife was born here, and it got a lot of good press before we actually moved here for me.
How would you describe Ridgefield Park to a non-resident?
I would describe Ridgefield Park to a non-resident as a gateway community. I was on a committee many years ago for public art in Ridgefield Park, and we looked to brand Ridgefield Park, and we tried to come up with a slogan. And I think it is a gateway for a number of reasons. It is a gateway to New York City. It's so close, and that is a big draw. It's also a gateway for people of different cultures to come to. So I feel that bridge works both ways. It draws people to the city, it draws people out of the city, and for someone that's lived here for a while like me, it's a bridge that draws you out of your cocoon as you grow older. You're exposed to different cultures, different things, very differently than you would be in a closed community.
How has the village changed over the years?
The village has changed a lot, and it hasn't changed at all. It's a really hard thing to describe. Maybe the faces have changed. Many of the traditions are still here, but I think that's how I would sum it up. It has changed and it hasn't changed.
In your opinion, what makes the village unique?
The village has always been unique to me because of this idea of community and service. I grew up in Pittsburgh, and we barely knew who the mayor was or the commissioners, and just to move to a community where the mayor walked down the street and knew just about everyone, and you could approach him, was such an eye-opener to me. It was something that I had never experienced before. My wife's family was always dedicated to service, and they provided a good example for me as a young husband and young father to follow in their footsteps. It's just been a joy to provide that service to the community in many different aspects, and something that I never experienced in my youth.
Is there anyone from Ridgefield Park that has influenced you? If so, who?
There's three people, really. The first two are my mother-in-law and father-in-law. They love the town, and I followed their example in many ways. The other person who I'm not related to, but I always admired, was George Fosdick. I looked at him for so many years, his big plaid pants and that blue blazer and his big smile, and I thought, that is a definition of a successful man. That is the mayor of the town, successful in business, a great family, and just really happy in his own skin. I've always thought of him as I've aspired to somehow be like that someday.
If you had to tell one story that captures the essence of Ridgefield Park, what is it?
One story that would capture the essence of Ridgefield Park. And I do have to say, if there are any children watching this with parents, please turn down the volume or have them leave the room. My story is that Many years ago, when we first moved to the town, I was the Santa for the town. And the first time I played Santa, a little boy and girl came and sat on my lap. And for some reason, with all the other little boys and girls, these two, we had an immediate connection. They were so sweet. They gave me little notes. They could barely write, tore out little things from their coloring books, puzzles that I could use in my sleigh. It was wonderful. And they lived around the corner from me. It was so special that later in the year, in June or July, the boy's mother said to me, "Are you going to be playing Santa this year?" And I said, "I have no idea." She said, "Oh, you must do it. He keeps talking about Santa. He wants to go back and see Santa again." So I played Santa for another year. The mother called me up and said, "When are you going to be there? What time? What day?" And we had it all planned. And the day that they were going to come, she called me up and she said, "We're not coming. He has chickenpox." I said, "Okay, well, tell him Santa said hello." I went to the municipal building, played Santa. On the way home, I decided I would just stop at his house. And it was about 9 o'clock. I knocked on the door. Now I'm going to cry. I'll never forget his face. Never forget his face. He opened up that door. He jumped out of his pajamas. He couldn't believe it. His parents couldn't believe it. It was nothing for me to do. And he gave me more puzzles and things. Fast forward, as I said, one of my favorite stories about Ridgefield Park is this bond that you end up having with people. He ended up going to school with my daughters. I was on the Board of Education. I think I ended up giving him his diploma from high school. There was always a nice little nonchalance, bond, a warmth, nothing really, intense. When he got married, I gave him all the notes. I had saved all the Santa notes. And I gave those to him. To this day, I see him and there's something there, and it's a really warm, beautiful story to me about the community, but those bonds keep going on from generation to generation.
Ridgefield Park is well known for its 4th of July celebration. Have you ever participated in the activities?
Let me recall if I've ever participated in the activity. Yes, my wife and I were very active in the parade for a quarter of a century. I brought a few things here. We used to wear these badges. So I brought some of them that I have. There's a few here. One I found, I couldn't believe it, from the 100th celebration. So that was a very nice thing to have. We love the parade. When I moved here, I just immediately fell in love with it. I had never seen anything like it. Once again, I have to say, I'm from Pittsburgh. I worked every holiday of my life until I was about 22 years old. I worked in a convenience store. There was no 4th of July. And then when we were getting married, I came here. I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe it. I remember the parade, those two elderly gentlemen walking at the front of the parade. It was so amazing. The fireworks, the parties. It was just great. We worked on that parade, and it was just a really, really beautiful experience. We worked primarily with Maureen Gibbs and Kathy Borkowski, and we kind of ran the children's parade together. There were times when we'd raise the money and had enough to give all the honor students bonds and every child in the parade a trophy. I don't know how we did it. We would, it would start the night before, would get ready to make sure that all the entries for the children's parade were in order. Marvin Gibbs and Kathy Borkowski would come to our house, would make sure that all the children had there were enough trophies for all the children, would get up in the morning, would decorate the hall for the scholars' breakfast, would run the parade. We would go to the Serenas, who always had a huge party. And once again, I always remember too. The Serenas would have a huge party, and that was even foreign to me. I remember my father-in-law saying to me, "Well, come to the Serenas. They're having a big party on 4th of July." And I said to him, "Well, Sheila and I weren't invited." And he said, oh, everybody's invited, come on. And we went, and everybody was invited. For years we went to that party, but the Serenas were really the heart of 4th of July for me for many years.
Are there any other local tradition or events in the village?
That I work on, I do work with the library. We've always worked on the Festival of Wreaths. 17 years ago, we created another tradition. It's a beautiful thing in Ridgefield Park. Everybody seems to love it, and it brings the community together. Another thing that I do in association with the library and the Arts Association is Word on the Street, which I'm particularly proud of. And that's an event where poets, writers, or anybody that just wants to tell a story gets up that night and has an open mic night. And I'm very proud of that.
Do you have any other memories of Ridgefield Park that you would like to share with us?
I would like to share a memory that I feel describes the essence of the town. When we first got engaged, my father-in-law, as I said, was very active in the community. He was having, right away, he told me that he was having a Rotary barbecue and that I should come to it. And of course, at the time, I always worked in New York. I wasn't going to be part of the Ridgefield Park business community, but he insisted that I come. And I remember we had flank steaks, and there were about 15 older gentlemen there. And it was nice. I was introduced to everybody, and we went on. The interesting thing is, as I said, these bonds and these subtle connections, those people remained in my life for many years, kind of on the fringes, but I knew the man who ran the deli and the liquor store. When we got married, the man who ran the crystal factory gave us crystal. We knew to go to the hardware store to get help with anything in our house. We knew the insurance agent. They were all kind of at this Rotary that night, and I felt like they kind of looked after me as a young man in the town.
In just one word, what does Ridgefield Park mean to you?
Well, to me at this point it means family. But I think service. I was raised in a very loving home, but not one that was particularly focused on service to the community. My wife Sheila and her family always were, and that was my first exposure to things like Scouts and Little League and girls softball, and I loved it all. I loved it all. But service and community and family, I think, sum it up.
Thank you, Bob Sienicki, for participating in the Voices of the Village.